and the police asks if Meredith usually locks her door, and Philomena is like, Meredith never locks her door.
All right, Philomena.
Yeah, she's such a busybody. And Philomena is like, you need to break down the door, but the police are like, we can't, not without a warrant. So eventually, Philomena's friends manage to break down the door.
Okay.
When Philomena and the police walk in, there is blood everywhere, and they see a foot sticking out from under a large tan duvet, and someone starts yelling. But Amanda, all she hears with her limited Italian is that there is a foot, and she thinks that they found a dead body in the armoire. Welcome to the Compendium, a story that's about to knock your socks off.
Oh, I see what you did there.
For those of you tuning in for the very first time, I'm your host, Kyle Reese.
And I'm your co-host, Adam Cox.
And you're listening to the Compendium, an assembly of fascinating and intriguing things. We're a weekly podcast where I, Kyle Reese, ordinarily tell Adam Cox all about a topic that I think he'll find both fascinating and intriguing. So, Adam, how are you this week?
I'm very well, thank you, Kyle. All very good.
Yeah, and here for another Compendium, huh? It's been quite a busy week this week. Before we delve into today's episode, I just want to take a moment to express our gratitude for your overwhelming support. You guys are totally awesome. We've just had so many really amazing reviews in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and some really nice comments and messages, so thank you. I feel like it's like we have a fan base now.
It is, yeah. And the thing is, though, you guys need to realize that every like, every share, every subscription, it really genuinely helps our show grow. So it's just awesome that you guys are there and that you're so engaged with us as well. So we appreciate it. And also, reviews, they play a massive part. So if you can spare just a few moments to leave us a cheeky 5-star review, then we would be eternally grateful because you can, I think, where can you review us? You can review us on Apple and also Spotify. Is that right?
I think so, yes.
And literally, we're not proud, so either will do. But if you're thinking of leaving us a 4-star review, then first reach out to us because then we can recommend a couple other podcasts where you can leave that 4-star review.
Sneaky.
We also might just read your review next week on the next episode. So
get a shout out.
Get a shout out, man. So for those of you who also can't get enough of the Compendium, as you know, we're also on Instagram at the Compendium Pod. So follow us and just help us trick those pesky algorithms. If you're anything like me and you enjoy the thrill of outsmarting the system, then follow us because it really will have an impact. But there's more.
There's more.
It's been a busy week, Adam, because this week the Compendium now has its very own home on the interwebs. So you can now find us at our very own website at thecompendiumpodcast.com.
Oh, wow.
So that's where you can find all our latest episodes, news, more events that might be coming up in the future, maybe, who knows. So yeah, just have a little browse and let us know what you think.
All right, enough of plugging our show. Let's get on to today's episode. What have you got on the menu today?
Well, today's episode of the Compendium, we're going to be tackling the infamous Amanda Knox and Meredith Kercher murder case.
I thought we were doing this.
What do you remember of this?
So I remember, so it was quite a while ago, and there were students, were they traveling? And one of them got accused of killing the other.
Well, you're partly right, yes. So in 2007, Meredith was a British student studying in Italy when she ended up being tragically murdered. So soon after, her roommate Amanda Knox and her boyfriend Raffaele accused of her murder, which then ended up just capturing the global kind of media attention. So today I'll be telling you what happened to Meredith and the role that the media played in shaping the public's opinion and how it ultimately ended up like impacting the trial of Amanda and Raffaele in the end. We'll also dive into kind of the gaping flaws in the Italian justice system and how this ended up essentially failing not only Amanda, but also Meredith itself, because ultimately, if it wasn't for the media and if it wasn't for the major flaws in the Italian justice system, then they would have found Meredith's killer a lot sooner. They would have got justice for her.
Okay.
So it just goes to show it's like it's this conflict between trying to get the latest story and how that can have these real negative ramifications on actual real people's lives, which is just crazy. So a lot of the information today actually comes from Amanda Knox's book titled Waiting to be Heard, and it's probably the only source that you can really trust when it comes to what actually happened to Amanda. Because so many of the articles and so many of the reportings out there are just so inflated, or just, what's the word? Sensationalized.
Mm-hmm.
It's just ridiculous.
So this is her autobiography, so her own words and retelling of everything that happened to her.
That's correct, yes. There's also a Netflix documentary as well, which is another excellent source of information, which covers the perspective of the press, which played such a massive role in this case, and also the outcome of the story.
I didn't realize the press had such a negative impact on the story, because I know there was obviously the evidence that convicted Amanda and then overturned that, but I didn't realize it was the press that...
Well, they wanted to sell a salacious story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, she was the perfect person to help sell these newspapers. She was this beautiful blonde American. Her roommate tragically got murdered, and they just wanted to build this story around her in order to just sell more newspapers.
And just the Italian press?
No.
The world?
It was the world press, but also mostly it was the UK press.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
That was really pioneering it.
I was really interested in whether it was like... because obviously the UK has a bit of a bad rep when it comes to our sort of tabloids.
Yeah.
So I did wonder if it was actually like Italian tabloids that were just as bad, or actually it was us.
Well, as you'll come to find out later on, this was around about the year 2007. So this was like the phone tapping scandal, all the crap that the McCanns were getting as well with the papers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's when when Madeleine first went missing.
That's it. So this was like News of the World heyday, if you will. So really aggressive kind of media reporting where almost no holes were barred, essentially. Yeah. Also, Raffaele Sollecito, who you'll come to know later on as Amanda's boyfriend at the time, he also wrote a book called Honor Bound, which is worth reading. It's sad because Raffaele ultimately does go through the mill, which is often glossed over in the retelling of the story. And lastly, Meredith Kercher's father, John Kercher, who is a renowned journalist, and his story is really sad, and we'll come on to that later on. But he wrote a book called Meredith, which details his daughter's murder and the search for, obviously, their truth. Now, John's book actually tells the story from the other side. And what's interesting is that the Kercher family still believe that Amanda and Raffaele are guilty.
Oh, really? So even though they've been...
exonerated.
Okay, so we're going to go into why they still believe that, right?
It's not really difficult to understand why. They were at the forefront of a lot of the feedback that was being received from the police, the first accounts of the evidence and stuff. I mean, I don't believe that they're guilty. I honestly believe that Amanda and Raffaele are completely innocent, but I don't blame them. They've lost their daughter at the end of the day. We will provide all the links to the show notes on everything that we discussed today, including obviously where you can find Amanda's Netflix documentary, believe it or not, on Netflix. So yeah, should we get into it?
Let's do it.
So Meredith Susanna Cara Kercher was born on December the 28th in 1985 in Southwark in London. Now, her parents were John and Arlene Kercher, and Meredith was the youngest in her family, joining her brother Lyle and her sister Stephanie. Now, Meredith was extremely charismatic. She was intelligent, she was beautiful, and she studied diligently and really made friends really easily as well. So she was really, really outgoing and a real extrovert. She attended the Old Palace School in Croydon, spending a year abroad when she was kind of 15. And after her time abroad, Meredith and her family spent the summer in Italy's southern coast, where Meredith really fell in love with Italy and vowed that she was going to return to the country, learn the language, and just eventually live there.
I agree. I love Italy, so I can totally get that.
It's gorgeous. Everywhere you go in Italy is just so different to the other parts of it. If you go north, if you go south, no matter where you go, it's just stunning. So she was actually studying at the University of Leeds, and she studied European politics and Italian, and she was supporting herself working as a bartender and also as a tour guide. Then when the opportunity to study in Italy presented itself, obviously she jumped at the chance. Now, Meredith chose to study at the University of Perugia, which is about 102 miles north of Rome and about 92 miles southeast of kind of like Florence. So if you can like picture that in your head.
Okay.
It is a college town, so it's really rich in history and culture. It's like one of the oldest towns in Italy. And they host multiple annual festivals like the European Chocolate Festival in October. They have the Umbria Jazz Festival in July and the International Journalism Festival in April. So it's like a real cerebral town. Loads of academics. I think like the population of the city is like 160,000, but the number of students that live in Perugia is like 40,000.
Okay.
So it's a huge amount. And there's loads of universities, not just the two. I think there's 7 different education institutions.
Big student population.
Yeah, huge. Absolutely huge.
And the chocolate festival sounds incredible. I wouldn't mind going to that.
I had no idea that Perugia was really famous for its chocolate. Hugely famous. So on the top of the list, you've got like Swiss chocolate, you've got Belgian chocolate, but also Italian Perugian chocolate is really up there as well, which I'd never
heard.
No, me neither.
We're probably going to see it everywhere now.
Yeah. So Meredith shared a flat with 3 other women, including 20-year-old Amanda Knox. Their address was number 7 Villa della Pergola, or Pergola. Meredith arrived in Perugia in late August of 2007 and quickly became friends with a group of British girls. At the time, Meredith was 21 years old and she was already really well traveled. She was extremely sophisticated and she fit in really well with life in Italy and amongst, obviously, her new Italian friends. Her older flatmates were Filomena and Laura, who largely lived different lives, mostly due to their age. They were like in their they were 28, almost 30.
Okay.
So naturally, Meredith would gravitate towards Amanda Knox. And that's where she comes into our story. So Amanda arrived in Perugia on the 20th of September 2007, and Amanda's journey to Perugia wasn't quite as smooth. She was born on July the 9th, 1987 in Seattle in Washington, so she's an American girl. And Amanda was the daughter of Kurt Knox, who was Macy's vice president of finance, and her mother was the woman called Ed Ellis, who was a maths teacher. So a few years after her birth, Amanda's parents divorced. Both parents were obviously naturally committed to co-parenting, and her father decided to buy a house just a few blocks down the road so he could be actively involved in his daughters' lives. Now, Amanda and her sister Dina, they were from her parents' first marriage, but she actually had 3 sisters in total. The other 2 were Delaney and Ashley, and Amanda primarily lived with her mother, her sister Dina, and her mother's second husband, Chris. Now, Amanda attended Seattle Prep High School, then went on to University of Washington in Seattle. And Amanda refers to the Seattle Prep as her strict Jesuit high school because it was a really extremely strict Catholic school. So there was like no mucking around with boys. It was all very kind of straight-laced and very strict. So this is the kind of environment that she was familiar with.
Okay.
Now, she'd also been to Italy at 15 and also fell in love with the language and the culture. So it's interesting, like the 2 girls share that kind of that same parallel, I guess.
Yeah, similarity. Maybe, well, it spoke to them.
Yeah, I guess so. And as it does to so many people. That's why she ended up in Italy, because of this love.
And pizza.
Yeah. So while Meredith was this sleek and sophisticated young British woman, Amanda describes herself as naive, a bit immature for her age, and people typically found her like quirky. She was athletic, she was considered quite inexperienced and rather idealistic as a person. She was what you might call a dreamer or like away with the fairies. That was her personality. Amanda was known for singing really loudly in school hallways. She would like just dance randomly in front of people. And she would also like really speak her mind without filtering. So basically, she was really annoying.
Well, she was just young.
Yeah.
Perhaps are more
She
annoying.
sounds exactly like me, as far as I'm concerned.
What, now or when you were like...
Yeah, I haven't changed.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So Amanda decided that she was also going to study a year in Italy and believed that Italy was going to be the thing that changed her into an adult. So Amanda worked several jobs to save money to live in Perugia. Unlike Meredith, Amanda had enrolled in the University of Foreigners. Like I said earlier on, there was like several different universities across Perugia. Now, in her book, she mentions that she thought that Meredith would also be at the same university, only to find out that Meredith was studying at the University of Perugia. So, like, she's a bit miffed because the University of Foreigners is just going to be filled with other students who don't really speak Italian. And the whole point of it was to, like...
learn Italian.
Exactly, and immerse yourself in the culture. But she was like, oh, well, she didn't even know it was an option.
Fine.
So in August 2007, Amanda and her sister Dina take a trip to Perugia. And the aim was to just familiarize themselves with the city and find a place to live before kind of term started. And during their visit, the girls meet Laura Mazzetti. And it just so happens that she's on the lookout for roommates. And Laura lives at flat number 7, Via della Pergola. So it was perfect timing. Straight away, they hit it off, and Amanda agrees to move into the house share. And later, they find a 4th roommate, and this was a young woman from England, and it was Meredith.
Right.
So eventually, Amanda returns to Perugia to start her studies, and this is where she meets Meredith for the very first time. Meredith is like really popular. She introduces Amanda to all her favorite spots all around the city. And yeah, so it was just a really exciting time for these girls, like starting off on this really awesome adventure, a year studying abroad in this beautiful country. They're like 20 something, and they're just in the process of finding themselves.
I remember starting university, and it was just all that kind of build up, because you go through education, GCSEs, then A levels. And then when you first, I don't know, because of that build up, when you're finally there, it's what? I'm here. And it's, I don't believe it. And you have that independence. You learn how to cook. You have to be thrown into all different social circles. Absolutely loved university.
That's it. Yeah. And this is where these girls are. And for the first time, they're like truly independent, exactly as you said. So, Adam, let's set the stage.
Okay.
Give us a bit of a sense of what 2007 was like.
Oh, God, that takes me back. Let's think. Fashion, that's the first thing that comes to mind. I remember I had like longer swooped hair.
We had the emo hair, or like the Justin Bieber hair.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Guys tend to have longer hair, sort of more scruffy in that sense. And you'd wear like a polo shirt with the collar up.
Yeah, that's it. The preppy look was in, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think
Hollister was big at the time. American Eagle was really big.
Baggier clothes, generally, slightly baggy.
Oh, really? No. Do you know what? I was starting to wear skinny jeans and tighter jeans around about then.
I think they started to come in, but I don't think they was like as popular as, say, skinny jeans were like a few years ago. So it was still people, because more like beachy, that kind of surfery type sort of style, I think.
Yeah, I definitely remember the preppy type.
And then music was all about R&B and rock. I think was still pop was still popular, but you had Rihanna. I remember Umbrella.
Umbrella was a big one. Yeah.
Then Kanye West. And 50
Kanye
Cent.
West.
There was all Timberland. I remember they were really big at the time.
Kaiser Chiefs.
Yes. Yeah.
Ruby, Ruby, Ruby.
Oh, God. I remember singing that like in the streets.
Yeah.
At
It was a good one.
university.
What was big in the news?
We covered about Madeleine McCann.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that happened in the March, didn't it?
Yeah. So I remember that being the first year of university. Wasn't it also the first year the iPhone was released?
Yes, that's it. Yes, the iPhone got launched in 2007.
I thought it was earlier, but because of I think it was the iPod. But then that was like such a big thing because no one had smartphones back then.
No, they didn't. Everyone was using a flip phone, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Anything else? What else was life like? What were you like, Adam? How old were you in 2007?
I was 19, 20.
Yeah.
Something. I would have turned 20 and I was in my second year. So work was starting to get slightly more serious, but not that serious.
That's it. Great. So we have a sense of where we're at in time, right? So back in Perugia, Amanda is settling into life nicely. Amanda and Meredith are both attending classes at the retrospective kind of universities. And the pair spend most of their time together during the first 4 weeks. They're the youngest in the house. They both spoke English, so it made sense that they'd get along, right? And they did all sorts of things together, right? They gossiped about boys. They occasionally smoked marijuana. They drank some wine, and they just explored the town together. Amanda would teach Meredith how to play the guitar, and they practiced yoga together, which was like two of Amanda's greatest loves, right? Together, they attended the International Chocolate Festival. They shopped for vintage clothes. They shared stories about boys and dating and just basic girl stuff. Like, I totally imagine them pillow fighting in their underwear. Totally.
That's a weird thing to say, but sure. Okay.
Don't take that away from me, Adam. That's what girls do.
Okay.
So up until this point, Amanda had casually been dating a couple guys, some of whom she ended up sleeping with. Now, in America, Amanda was considered cute, but in Italy, she was beautiful. Men saw her as this kind of like blonde, exotic American woman, which...
Italian men.
Yes, Italian men. Yeah. So I imagine that must have been quite dizzying for her at the time. So in her book, she does speak openly about like wanting to find herself in Italy and talks about exploring casual relationships to try and understand what it was that she wanted in a partner. Mm-hmm. We've all been there. We've all done that. This is exactly what you do at university. However, casual sex for her doesn't really seem to work out too well for her. It ends up making her feel more heartsick than happy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really become a major habit for her. It's not something that she actively is seeking out.
Sure.
But she's popular, so you're going to explore that when you can. If you didn't realize you were pretty, you're going to be like, in Italy, I'm pretty?
I'm sure she's pretty everywhere, but yeah.
She's quite an attractive girl. Both of them were beautiful. Mm. So now below Amanda and Meredith's apartment lived Giacomo, Stefano, and Marco, and there was a fourth guy as well who goes unmentioned, but based on the names, I gather it was probably something like Bradley.
I'm loving the name Giacomo Stefano.
No, that's two separate people.
Oh, I thought that was someone.
Giacomo, Stefano, and Marco.
Oh.
Yeah.
That would make such a good full name, though. Giacomo Stefano.
Or Giacomo, Stefano, Marco. Maybe they are just one person. No, they definitely are three people. But most evenings after dinner, they would like all hang out together by the basketball courts, which wasn't too far away from their apartment. And again, just drinking, smoking, chilling, like just being young, being university students. So by early October, Amanda begins to realize that her academic schedule isn't going to be as intense as she thought. So to fill her time and to combat kind of those feelings of listlessness and loneliness, she just decides that she's going to get a job. So her roommate Laura introduces her to a man named Juvie, who then introduces her to a man named Patrick Lumumba, I believe that's his name. Now, Patrick owns a bar called Le Chic, and he ends up offering Amanda a job, like distributing flyers to kind of attract people into the bar. And then when the bar opens, or like after 11 or something, she's then a cocktail waitress. Mm-hmm. So after a few really uncomfortable experiences with overly forward men, Amanda and Meredith create like this system where Meredith would walk Amanda home if she ever needed to. So one evening after an early close, Amanda calls Meredith to come and meet her, and they end up stopping off at a local bar where they meet up with the boys from downstairs. Along with the neighbors is a new guy who they've never seen before, and his name is Rudy. And he's from the Ivory Coast, which is like an African country. During the evening, Rudy says to the boys that he has his eye on Meredith, but they all just laugh at him because they don't really think he stands a chance, really. So ultimately, nothing really comes of this. But Meredith later tells Amanda that she really likes one of the other boys from downstairs, and that's Giacomo. So one night, after a bit of flirting, a few drinks, Meredith and Giacomo, they end up having a bit of a kiss together, and they go home together. Meanwhile, Amanda brings home some random guy that is visiting from Rome. And this will be the only time that Amanda brings a guy home. It's going to be important later, and you're going to see why.
Okay.
So on Thursday, October the 25th, Meredith and Amanda decide that they're going to go to a classical music concert together. And during the intermission, Meredith is like, this is boring, and leaves to meet up with her British friends. But Amanda decides that she's going to stay. And while she's there, she meets a guy called Raffaele Sollecito. Mm-hmm. It's a good name, Sollecito. What Amanda says in her book is that she was sitting alone when Raffaele approached her, and he asked if he could join. And it turns out that his English is way better than her Italian. So the pair just end up really hitting it off because the conversation is uninterrupted. It's not shaky. Like they can just talk about more complex things.
Sure. Well, everyone's English is better than people that are English.
Yeah, it's like the international language, isn't it? Everyone can speak English.
Yeah.
Raffaele asks to walk Amanda home, which she agrees to. And halfway, he casually asks, like, do you want to, like, smoke a joint or something? And she's like, hell yeah. So they smoke a little...
wild.
Yeah, she's wild. So they smoke a bit of a doob, and somewhere along the way, they stop, they share a kiss. And they end up back at Raffaele's apartment now. He's really well off, so he kind of lives alone at this point. Now, Amanda starts to stay over at his place every time they hang out, which kind of makes sense, right? Like, why go back to your house share where you can enjoy some privacy without any of your housemates, like, getting up in your business and stuff?
You have to, what was the thing where you have to put something on your door? Like, I'm busy.
Yeah, exactly. Raffaele, he is quite adorable, really. So he's this glasses-wearing video game geek kind of guy, and Amanda refers to him as her Italian Harry Potter because he genuinely looks like a little Italian Harry Potter. He's got the floppy hair. He wears his stupid little scarf. He's got his little round glasses on.
I'd say round glasses.
Yeah. So he's 3 years older than Amanda, but way less experienced in terms of the sex front. So landing someone like Amanda, this beautiful American woman who genuinely seems interested in him, is like huge for Raffaele. Amanda talks about how they would bond over their shared interests and the fact that they both could speak a little bit of German. Amanda has relatives in Germany and Raffaele's kind of visited a few times. Now, together, they have this cute little game where they would like make little faces at each other. And basically, their relationship gets very intimate very quickly and super intense, super fast, right?
Okay.
Like from day one.
They're falling for each other, yeah?
Yeah, we're all been like that age. So we all know what that's like. Amanda describes Raffaele as someone who showed her that kind of kindness that she was used to back home, making her feel comfortable, especially in a foreign country, right? So naturally, she's going to gravitate towards that, right? Because it's only been a few weeks since she arrived in Italy, so she's still trying to adjust. And because he gives her that kind of that sense of familiarity that she gets from at home, she sees him very quickly as like this comfort blanket, right? She wants to be near him. They have a lot in common, etc. What made me laugh is when asked about details of the relationship later on, Amanda describes these quirky little rituals that they had. So for instance, when one of them is doing the dishes, like the other would rub the other one's back. Now, bear in mind, they'd literally only been together for 7 days.
What?
At this point. So it's interesting that they describe it as like a ritual already.
A ritual? I'd be like, if you can rub my back, you can pick up the tea towel and you can help me clear up.
Yeah. But it's kind of like, well, when you're young and you fall in love for the first time, like days feel like months, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if they're spending all their time nice.
Yeah, it's sweet. They are cute. So meanwhile, Amanda and Meredith, obviously they're still roommates, they're good friends, but they're starting to find their own social circles. Now, Meredith was spending a lot more time with her British friends and a guy called Giacomo. He's the guy that lives downstairs. While Amanda was mostly hanging out with Raffaele, the two were like becoming like two passing ships in the night. They weren't drifting apart, but they weren't really seeing each other. And remember, like this is how it's been reported, but this is a very short amount of time. It's been like a week. So this is how it's defined. I haven't seen her in a week. Oh, we become like passing ships in the night.
Yeah, and also
it's just silly.
And it's also like when you start university, you form bonds with people that you immediately live with quite early on.
Yeah.
And then you do find new friendships and you do expand. And sometimes you don't even hang out with the people you end up
This is exactly the thing that's happening. Like they're just finding their way. They're adjusting. They're falling into place. Right? So it's late October and Halloween is approaching. And it's going to be one of the busiest nights for kind of the local bars in the area. Now, the girls check in with each other about their plans, and Amanda is working that night. And then afterwards, she plans to spend the night with Raffaele, surprise, surprise. While Meredith, she's off to her favorite bar dressed as a vampire. And when you look at pictures of Meredith, like you'll see a lot of these. She looks a bit odd, but because she's got fangs in there, she's trying to strike a pose. But if you don't realize that she's in fancy dress, you go, that's a weird pose that she's making. She's got fangs in her mouth. It's cute. So the next morning, they catch up and recap their Halloween evening, and Raffaele comes over for lunch. Meredith was doing a little bit of laundry, and they both shared their plans for the rest of the day, which is now November the 1st. Now, again, Meredith was going out with her British friends, while Amanda was planning to stay in at Raffaele's and maybe head to work if she was needed, because she was on call that evening. They also mentioned that they had plans to go on a romantic weekend, like the next day, and that was, unfortunately, the last conversation that they ever have.
Wow, okay.
So I just want to touch upon this real quick, because the media really takes the following friction between the girls and really makes it into something that it really wasn't, which becomes like a really important part of the story later on. Amanda and Meredith, were they the perfect roommates? The answer is no. Meredith occasionally complained about Amanda's untidiness, but these were like far from major issues. It's just normal stuff.
So when you're at university, it's very rare that everyone you live with is going to be like really clean and tidy. Yep. So if you're the tidy one, so it's either going to be you or someone else is going to be the messy one. Or
exactly.
like that.
Yeah, that's it. There is this one time where they have a minor clash where Meredith has to remind Amanda to clean the toilet after every use. Now, I'm not saying that Amanda left a dirty mark in the toilet. What I'm saying here is that Meredith is like, no, after you go to the toilet every single time, just clean the toilet with a brush.
Okay.
Even if it's a wee. Which I think, okay, that's a bit extreme.
Maybe, but I guess some people are different.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. It's a bit weird, but not that weird.
And at the end of the day, after this altercation, kind of Amanda's more like embarrassed than upset. That's the only real minor clash that they have. And it's just two girls that are just adjusting, living with each other after like living with their parents for their whole lives.
Yeah.
Right? That's all it is.
Exactly, yeah.
November the 1st, Meredith left to meet up with her friends. Meanwhile, Amanda and Raffaele are chilling at his place. They're planning on watching Amelie, and they're going to...
I love Amelie.
Fuck's sake.
That was 2000... No, it was 2005, I think, Amelie. But,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Amanda is super excited because she cannot believe that Raffaele has never seen Amelie, and it's because he's not a 12-year-old girl.
What? It's for... Shut up.
I hate that film.
It's the best... It's my favourite film. You can just shut your mouth.
Well, you and Amanda are the same person, basically. So around 8:30 p.m., Amanda gets a text from her boss, Patrick, and he tells her that he doesn't need her at work this evening. So she's absolutely thrilled because it means that she can now spend the whole evening with Raffaele. She replies to Patrick's text with the exact Italian translation for "see you later, have a good evening," which is a very common English phrase, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Now remember that, because that's going to come up later.
Right.
They finish Amelie around about 9:15, and 9:30 they cook dinner. It's fish and a simple salad, and that's when they notice that the sink's been leaking. Now, Raffaele is trying to mop it all up, but he's short of towels, and Amanda says, just leave it. I will bring my mop over tomorrow before we go away for our dirty romantic weekend away. So after dinner, they relax a bit, they smoke a joint, they read some German Harry Potter to each other.
German Harry Potter?
German Harry Potter, yeah.
Wow. I want to hear what
Very
that sounds like.
Oh, God. I'm terrible with accents, so I don't want to try.
Would the spells be in German, like smelly armpits or whatever it is?
Oh, I don't know. No. But yeah, I mean, they both have this thing in common that they can speak a little bit of German, and they both really love Harry Potter. I guess it was a thing, because actually, 2007, that was another big thing. Was it The Deathly Hallows got released?
Was that when that was released?
I think so, one of them. I remember queuing up when that got released. But yeah, God. I'd love to read it all again from the very beginning without knowing about, unread it. I want to unread Harry Potter and then reread it.
Why don't you just read it in German? Then you can experience it in a different way.
No, I don't have time for that. German is such an angry language.
Hi, German listeners.
It's just so angry. Anyway, so they open up about each other's painful past. They talk about how Raphael's mother passed away a few years earlier, and they share this kind of deep, meaningful conversation, and then they just have sex and go to sleep. That's what life's like for them. So when they wake up on the 2nd November, Amanda leaves Raphael's place in the early morning, and she's going home to just have a shower, pack her bags for the weekend. When she arrives home, the flat door is open. Now, she knows that the door has been acting up. So it's weird, but it's not that weird. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Amanda goes to the bathroom to take a shower, and she sees 2 drops of blood on the sink. And she thinks, oh, it might be from my fresh ear piercing that I recently had. But the blood's dry. So she maybe thinks that maybe Meredith has nicked herself while shaving or something.
Okay.
So after she has a shower, she notices that there is a big, large, rust-coloured spot on the bath mat. Her mind immediately jumps to, oh, Meredith must have had a period. Right?
Okay.
So Amanda dries off, she dresses, she packs, and then she decides that before she's going to leave, she's just going to quickly dry her hair in the large bathroom, where she notices just the biggest shit in the entire world just in the toilet.
Oh, so gone for a poo, but haven't flushed it.
Hadn't flushed it, but it's massive. So to her, that's weird. She's given Meredith's kind of attention to cleanliness.
Sure.
She's thinking, maybe the toilet was broken, maybe someone was drunk or high, but she's now starting to get the sense that something is off.
Or, yeah, is that... And plus, it doesn't sound like Meredith would lead a giant poo.
Exactly. I think possibly that's going through her head as well. So she collects her things. She grabs a coat, she grabs a bag, she grabs a mop, and halfway to Raphael's house, she can't seem to shake this feeling of unease, and she decides that she's going to call her mum. And her mum's like, yeah, it's weird, but don't lose your mind over it.
Mm-hmm.
So she tries Meredith's phone, and there's no answer. Next, she calls her roommate, Philomena, and she tells her about her morning, but Philomena is not as calm as Amanda, and she's freaking out just a bit. And she says, you need to know that Meredith was alone in the house that night. Laura the other roommate, was away at a conference in Rome, and Philomena stayed at her boyfriend's house. And she tells Amanda that you need to go back and you need to find out what's happened. So Amanda agrees, but she continues on her way to Raffaele's house. When she arrives, she explains to Raffaele what's happened, and they sit down and they have breakfast.
Okay.
So don't you think that's an odd choice?
I guess maybe they're like, this is weird, but maybe I guess they're probably not thinking the worst of what's happened.
Yeah.
So they're like, she's probably weird. Let's just have some food and then we'll go deal with it.
Yeah, I guess it's because in that moment, she's not really facing a situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's maybe everything's normal. It's maybe a bit off, but there's no major alarm bells that's going off. I guess you're right.
I think that's how I would, unless you're thinking the actual worst.
Yeah, well, no one does that, do they?
Maybe you'd perhaps try and call Meredith a couple more times, perhaps.
Yeah. So in the middle of breakfast, she gets another call from Philomena. And she's like, what did you find? Did you go back? Did you talk to Meredith? What's happening? And she tells her, like, relax. Like, we're about to leave. But in this moment, what Amanda doesn't realize is that she is making a series of really poor choices that are going to come and bite her in the butt.
Okay.
So Raffaele and Amanda head back to the house, and as they enter, they start calling for Meredith. They knock on the door, but there's no answer, and her bedroom door is locked, which is unusual, but Amanda rationalizes it. She's like, saying like sometimes Meredith like locks her door when she's changing because Amanda's too curious about the female body, you know. So
bloody Amanda again.
She's coming in looking at my naked body. They notice that Philomena's room is completely trashed, right? They see a rock on the floor, there's broken glass all over the bed, and clothes are everywhere, but nothing seems to be taken, but it does look like a break-in.
So she didn't spot this on her way out?
No, she didn't. I guess she didn't go into the room.
Fair enough, yeah.
So Philomena calls again, and Amanda updates. So Philomena panics and says, I'm coming home. Meanwhile, Amanda and Raffaele are frantically trying to locate Meredith. They consider that maybe she's downstairs in the apartment with the boys, but they can't get inside. Amanda tries climbing up to see if she can see through a window, but she can't see anything. And at this point, Amanda calls her mum and tells her mum that about the break-in, and her mum's like, leave the house immediately and call the police. Mm-hmm. So they head outside and Raffaele calls the cops. Now, the police, along with Philomena, arrive shortly after. These officers are part of what they call the postal police. So they're not your typical police officers, right? This means that they specialize in investigating like crimes related to communication technologies, right?
Communication technology?
Yes. These officers inform the group that someone has reported finding 2 cell phones in the neighbor's garden, and the phones are registered to both Meredith and Philomena.
Okay.
Now, it's clear that they were dumped there. Philomena had given Meredith the SIM card for Meredith to use for local calls, while Meredith kept her UK phone number for reaching the UK. So technically they were both Meredith's, but where was she? So the cops look around and they conclude that it looks like a break-in, and it's clear that the culprit has fled the scene, and they assure everyone that everything's fine. But like Amanda's then like, Meredith's door is locked, and what about the fact that we just found her 2 cell phones in the garden next door? And the police are like, oh yeah, that changes things. And now everyone's a little bit freaked out.
And there's a giant poo in our toilet, which we can't account for.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently in some, like, the poo is a bit weird to me, because in some accounts, apparently Amanda goes into the bathroom and it's flushed away, which means that whoever was in the house at the time when they returned.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, they have photographs apparently of the turd. So I don't understand. I just mentioned it because it was funny. It was just the biggest shit she's ever seen.
Okay. The phantom poo. Was it there or was it not?
Yeah, exactly. So a cop asks Amanda if Meredith usually locks her door, and Meredith says sometimes, like when she's getting dressed. And Philomena is like, Meredith never locks her door.
All right, Philomena.
Yeah, she's such a busybody. And Philomena is like, you need to break down the door, but the police are like, we can't, not without a warrant. So eventually, Philomena's friends manage to break down the door.
Okay.
When Philomena and the police walk in, there is blood everywhere. It's on the walls, it's on the floor, there's smears in the blood everywhere. And they see a foot sticking out from under a large tan duvet, and someone starts yelling. But Amanda, all she hears with her limited Italian is that there is a foot, and she thinks that they found a dead body in the armoire. So contrary to what people say, Amanda doesn't actually see the crime scene at all. She doesn't see the bloody room. She doesn't see the person inside there.
So where is she? She's
just on the other side of the door, right?
Fine.
She doesn't go in.
Okay.
So the scene is just complete chaos, and she's like trying to make sense of it, right? Remember, she can't really speak Italian that well, and the police just order everyone out because now it's a crime scene.
Right.
So they all go out on the front lawn. Filomena is sobbing. Everyone is crying. Calls have been made to Giacomo to tell him what's happened, and Amanda just stands there, like perplexed, she's just clinging to Raffaele. And despite the news breaking like immediately about the murder in Perugia, to onlookers, Amanda and Raffaele, they seem really distant, and they're just standing there, occasionally like cooing at each other and kissing each other. So it just kind of looks sus.
A little bit strange, perhaps.
Yeah.
Are they behaving in this? It sounds like there's a bit of hysteria naturally with Filomena and maybe her friends. And Amanda and her boyfriend are a bit on the outside and maybe not sharing that same sentiment.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily indicative of their guilt, but these are some of the poor choices that I was talking about. Some of these weird things like not investigating the blood sooner, not going straight back to the house, going on to like kind of have breakfast with Raffaele. And
seem a bit lax and chilled about the whole thing. And
that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So Meredith's father, John, so he's a reporter in the UK, and he sees the news and he notices like the site of his daughter's house in Perugia, and he gets a little concerned. So he reaches out to some of his press contacts for more information, and that is how he hears that the victim's name is Meredith.
Ugh.
How awful is that?
Wow.
The autopsy reveals that Meredith had 16 bruises, she had 7 cuts, there was a sign of a struggle and a sign that someone was covering up a mouth and a nose. And also there was evidence of kind of sexual violence that had taken place. So she was raped. And ultimately what killed her was a real, like a slash to the throat right in there. So this murder ends up thrusting Perugia into the international spotlight. And in the midst of it all, there is Amanda and Raffaele. And they are, in this moment, just engrossed in each other, completely oblivious to the gravity that this situation honing in on them.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in walks a guy called Giuliano Mannini. Now, he's like the lead prosecutor in this entire shit show, and he fancies himself a bit of a detective, even though he is not a detective. He's a prosecutor. So he literally describes himself as Sherlock Holmes. Remember, not a detective, he's a prosecutor. And he just happens to be on scene. So he says about himself that he's really good at finding and piecing together clues like Sherlock Holmes himself. He's also like a deeply devout Catholic as well. So he's really all about the morals. It just feels like some guy who's like clutching the pearls and like, oh my God, where's my smelling salts? So kind of like anything immoral or modern, I think he would hate it. So he's on the scene and he sees Amanda and Raffaele out on the lawn embracing and comforting each other. That's a good way of saying it. They're just comforting each other.
Yeah, I guess as long as they're not like making out and stuff, but they're just hugging and
they're
holding each other.
Yeah, and Mannini is like, that's the devil. That's the devil right there.
Oh, wow. So he's already like, this prosecutor's gone, that's it. I know it.
That's it. But also what strange language. Like, why say, oh, that's the devil right there? That's just such an old-fashioned-y, that's just weird to me.
Okay.
So Amanda and Raffaele, along with the rest of Meredith's friends and roommates, are all taken to the police station where everyone makes like these emotional statements. They're crying, people are devastated. But Amanda, she's different. She's switched into kind of like helper mode at this moment in time.
Okay.
So she's like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to help the police find who did this. And she talks at length in her book about how she really genuinely believed at this moment in time that she was going to be hugely invaluable to the detectives. And this was literally the frame of mind that she was in.
It's quite an odd... I don't know. That's quite an odd sort of mentality. Maybe that's how some people react to that kind of flight or fight. And I guess she's fighting in a way.
Yeah.
But that's quite an odd thing to go, oh, I'm going to help solve this.
Well, the thing is, you need to remember that people deal with grief in different ways. Some people will panic. Some people will, well, again, like she's just switched into helper mode. Many people were crying. They called their parents. But Amanda, she, at this moment in time, she was really calm. So I think maybe she's in shock. So eventually, when she does call her mum is like, you should go stay with your aunt in Germany. Just get out of Italy. But she's like, no, I need to stay in Italy so that I can help the police. And she just keeps emphasizing like, I'm an adult. I can handle this because this is what adults do. And one of the reasons for wanting to come to Italy was because she genuinely believed this was the year that she was going to grow up. You know what I mean? So I don't agree with it. I wouldn't have reacted like this, but I don't not agree with it.
I don't know if it's, I wouldn't say it was a sign of a guilty person, I don't think. But what did she say about, does she comment on the embracing and holding whilst the detectives have started to look in the place? Does she comment on how she was being, or thought she was being betrayed?
She does, and I don't know if I necessarily buy it. And we'll come on to that in a minute when we get to the bit when she's been interrogated. Because it gets a bit worse, like it really becomes a point of contention for the police. Like you realize that someone's died and you just feel like you're just being disrespectful. But we'll come on to that. So when Amanda asks police if she needs a lawyer, they say, no, you don't. That makes you look guilty. Don't get a lawyer. So she just doesn't. She basically just trusts the police. She thinks that the police are good and that they're going to help her get justice for her and her friend. Unfortunately, behind her back, things are just way more sinister. That prosecutor, Manini, so he goes back to the crime scene and he notes how Meredith's body has been covered up by this tan duvet. And immediately he says, the killer has to be a woman because men don't cover up bodies. And I'm like, that is ridiculous. There are countless cases where men have covered up bodies. But he says this like literally with a straight face. Even on the documentary, he believes it. But he's just so misguided. He's stupid.
I guess he's worked on maybe enough cases and maybe it's not common.
But it's complete bullshit. I can literally name like 100 cases.
100 cases, go.
Fine. For example, John Wayne Gracie. So he was a serial killer and a sex offender known as obviously the Killer Clown. And he tortured and murdered 33 young kids. And he covered all of them. He hid them all in like crawl spaces and stuff like that. So there's one, right? The Ted Bundy case. Ted was one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. And he was known to have killed like 30-odd women during like the 1970s. And he would go to great lengths to hide his victims, right? Including burying them in remote areas.
Right.
The Moors murders as well. All those kids were buried. In Fred West, he buried them all in his garden. So these are all examples of people just killing people and just leave them out in the open.
Right.
So it was just, I just didn't get it. It was stupid. And I don't know why no one picked up on that before and just called him out on his bullshit.
Okay, so that's Manini's conspiracy theory.
That is it. So Manini casts his mind back to when he saw Amanda at the crime scene. She's not crying and she's been really affectionate with Raffaele. So he makes up this wild connection and decides from this moment on that she is linked to the murder in some way and that he was going to prove it. He was going to make it happen. So he repeatedly talks about Meredith as this kind of like classy woman full of morals, even though the only thing that he knows about her at this moment in time is that she's dead. He knows nothing about her. So from that moment, in his eyes, essentially, Amanda, she was the murderer. So over the next 4 days, Amanda and Raffaele, they are interrogated endlessly. And at one point, Amanda is taken back to the apartment where she is shown the knife drawer. Not the top one, like the second one down, like the junk drawer, the one with all the mismatched utensils, right?
Yeah.
And the police demand that she identify where the missing murder weapon is. And then Amanda is like, what? And then she's like, I see what's happening. And she begins to understand that she has been literally implicated as a suspect at this moment in time.
Really? So why is that? Because they're saying they're asking her, where is this particular knife?
Where is the knife? Yeah. So in that moment, she just starts to panic. She screams, she's pacing, she's hitting herself on the head. And she's literally...
Hitting herself on the head?
Yeah, she's like banging her hands like up here.
Oh, God, that's quite a reaction.
I think she's just like, what's happening? And of course, the prosecutor, Manini, he's there for all of this. And he's like, you can hear Meredith's screams in your head, can't you? It's all coming back to you. You're remembering what's happened now. And obviously, that's not the case. So in that moment, Amanda is just like reacting to the realization that A, that her friend has just been murdered, and B, that she's now been implicated for that murder. So I get it. And this whole time she was like cooperating with the police, thinking, I'm going to help them. I'm going to be really cooperative. I haven't got a lawyer. I decided not to go away to Germany. So I guess there's also a lot of regret there. She's not being such an idiot. Do you know what I mean? She has this belief that justice will prevail. And it's not. It's turning against her. So I get it. I get that reaction now.
I don't know. I feel like it's really hard to put myself in that situation. I don't know if I'd react that way, but I guess, like you say, the grief might be coming to her at a different time. So maybe that's why.
Like I said, she does make a lot of poor decisions that do make her seem a bit sus.
Yeah.
I don't think it's indicative that she's guilty.
Okay.
But they are bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to get a little bit worse as well. But the media also, they take these actual truths and they make them into something that they're not necessarily reflective of real life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So somehow at this point, Amanda is at the police station more than she isn't. And when she isn't at the police station, she's sleeping at Raffaele's house, but she's got no access to her clothes. She's like, I don't want this to be real. I don't want to buy new clothes because this is all soon going to be over. But I just need to change my knickers.
Okay.
And she also just happens to be on a period now as well, which I'm not going to pretend that I understand how all that works because I just don't. I don't come across people that have periods very often.
What?
Well, it's not like I think as a straight man living with a woman, I think you probably come in contact with periods more than gay men. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Name the last 25 periods that you've come in contact with. I'm sure if we called up one of our straight friends, Nick, and asked him,
okay,
list all the periods that you've come in contact with or had an experience with, he'd be like, yeah, July 27th and the month before that and the month before that.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But she's on a period, is my point. So Raphael says, okay, I'll go buy you some underwear. So they go to the shop, and it's not like Ann Summers or Victoria's Secret or anything like that. It's like H&M. And she picks out the first pack of briefs that she comes in contact with, and it's like got like a little cartoon on the front. And reporters immediately get footage of this, and they're like, he bought her sexy underwear, and they're just laughing in the face of their murdered friend. And so, yeah, it's just really random. And then the store clerk chimes in, apparently, in the aftermath. And he's, oh, yeah, I think like when they were buying it, I overheard him say, yeah, I'm going to take you home and have like dirty sex with you in this underwear. So
some store clerk chipping in to get his little moment of fame.
Exactly. He wants his 15 minutes of fame. He's clearly lying. So this just becomes huge international news. The press are subtly now starting to look deeper into Amanda. They have this great angle. Mm-hmm. And now they want more. So they get hold of her diary and they talk to her friends and they get hold of a MySpace page and there's all kinds of stuff on there that they really like. So
MySpace, I forgot about that.
I know,
one.
right? That was another big thing.
Yeah.
They find pictures of her laughing while she's shooting a machine gun. So that's not going to look good.
Yeah.
Is it?
It looks
like
crazy.
A crazy like mad woman like shooting a machine gun. They find pictures that her sister took for her photography class where Amanda is suggestively posing near a piano or on a piano. I haven't seen the photograph.
Oh, then she must be a murderer.
She's a vixen. And the best bit is that they discover that her name on MySpace is Foxy Noxy. And that's all they need, literally. Yeah. So Amanda becomes this femme fatale and they have proof because why else would you call yourself Foxy Noxy if you weren't a murderous whore?
Okay.
But actually, Foxy Knox is a nickname that she gets in middle school. And when she plays like soccer, she's like really quick like a fox. So they call her Foxy Noxy.
Oh, okay.
But they've turned it into this kind of this femme fatale.
Realize this whole thing. She's been bought underwear. She's just...
And this is all the British press, Adam.
Oh.
It's crazy. They're on the ground. They're getting blow by blow. And the extent that they go to get their stories is just sickening. Like they get her diary.
How do they get that?
God knows.
There must be like, do they fly over and someone from Daily Mail sells in and pretends to be a prosecutor?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
In a scene that we'll come to in a minute, they even get into the police station.
Really?
Yeah, and they have a chat with her. It's crazy. They also talk about how all the men that she slept with in Perugia, I think it's like 4 men.
I remember actually this in the news stories afterwards with her being like some sort of weird sex-crazed woman.
Oh, Adam. It gets so much worse.
Okay.
Like, yeah, they really like kind of hook into that kind of sex craze, orgy loving, I don't know, sex obsessed femme fatale woman. Yeah. So like she slept with like 4 men. I think in her entire life is like 7 people, which is not that big of a deal. I guess to someone like Manini, it's huge, right? Because he's like this devout Catholic. But yeah. But 7 people is nothing. It certainly doesn't make you a murderer anyway, even if she has slept with even more people than that. I know people with... My mum's got a bigger body count than some people I know, and she's not a murderer.
I hope she's not listening.
All this is happening. It's 4 days later after the murder, and they're going back and forth being questioned. In between interviews, she's just chilling in the corridor when she starts talking to, I think it's a reporter. She obviously doesn't know. And he says, I hear you like yoga. And he's like, can you show me some? And she gets up and she starts doing splits and she starts doing a cartwheel. And of course, at that exact moment, the
There's
interrogator, a female interrogator, she comes out of the elevator and she sees what's going on. And she's like, "You crazy woman, get over here. This is so inappropriate. Stop doing this." So this doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Basically. And then Raffaele has finished with his interview, and before she's due to go back in, the two are just standing outside the room, cuddling and kissing. And again, the interrogators are like, "What's wrong with you? Like, someone has died, yet you're standing there making out."
Yeah, that is a bit weird. This sounds like someone's a bit, I don't know.
Amanda does explain in a book that she says this behavior was like really comforting to her because it made her feel less scared in the moment. Like she had this opportunity to be comforted and cuddle with her boyfriend. Mm-hmm. So it helped take her mind off the situation. I don't really fully get it. I don't know if maybe I've misinterpreted what she was saying in the book, but I don't really get it. I get that people are all different. But of course, the investigators, like, they look at this and they just think, oh, that she's ready to go home and have sex, and that's not good.
I guess maybe it's different cultures and stuff, but maybe, I don't know, I guess I would have thought, I feel maybe being British, you have a bit more like, oh, you know, you can comfort, you can hug, but you wouldn't put on any serious affection.
The optics are not good. There's another incident where she is in the station and she's really freaking out. So Raffaele gets her to sit on a lap and he's like bouncing her like a toddler. And I mean, this doesn't look good. So when she's being interrogated, again, the police tell her, "We've had a breakthrough in your case." And she's like, "Great. Like, you must have figured out who did it. Tell me. Like, what's happened?" And they tell her Raffaele has broken. And apparently, he has told police that around about 1 a.m. on the morning of Meredith's murder, that Amanda had left the house for about an hour before then coming back.
Does this, I mean, I'm guessing they are completely lying. Are they allowed to do that?
Well, basically what's going on the other side of that door is that the police are telling Raffaele that Amanda is untrustworthy. They tell her that she regularly engages in suspicious activities. And all of this, Adam, is coupled with the fact that he hasn't slept, he hasn't eaten, and he is under like immense pressure. Mm-hmm. So apparently he tells police that Amanda left the house that night. And they keep pushing him like with questions of like, when did she leave? Like, what happened? Like, where did she go? Why did she go? So it must have just been absolutely awful for him. And it has been proven that this kind of pressure can distort like your reality and has proven to lead people to admitting to things that they just didn't do. And that's what's happened in this case.
I find that quite weird that he would have actually said, "Oh, yay, she left."
Well, the same thing happens to Amanda. So they relay this information to Amanda and she is devastated. She can't understand why Raffaele would lie. And again, the interrogators keep pushing her now. Like, they're asking her, "Why did you leave? Like, where did you go?" It's just relentless. And again, at this point, she is also exhausted. She's hungry. And they just keep going at her. And they're saying that, "We know that you went to go see Patrick that evening because Raffaele told us that you did." And they have a text to prove it as well. They've now forced... Exactly. They've now forced Raffaele to like warrant or corroborate the text and acknowledge it. And then they've made this fit, basically.
Yeah.
So the text reads, "As you remember, I'm going to see you later. Have a good night," which in Italian means I'm going to see you, I think, like imminently.
Okay.
And Amanda is like, "That's not what I meant, though." Like, she's trying to explain to them that she uses the phrase in the context of an American colloquialism, right? Yeah. Which apparently doesn't translate into Italian. So Amanda is like freaking out and she's like, "I don't know what the fuck's going on." And another officer in the room with like really limited English, he's, "I know fuck you. I know what that means. Fuck you back." And then he writes down that she's really violent. So it's not looking good. And as they continue to press her, they manage to implant a memory in her. And
how'd they do that?
Well, this is it. There's these techniques that are out there that they use. Like, they're completely banned now. But up in Italy, at this point, they were still legal. So she begins to visualize Patrick in a brown jacket at the basketball court near kind of the house. And she recalls hearing Meredith screaming. And they take this as a confession and she signs it.
What? Hang on. So she says that she had seen Patrick that night in the brown jacket.
Yep.
And she remembers hearing Meredith screaming.
Well, imagine it, right? You're with your boyfriend all night. He says, well, she left around about 1 a.m. And she's like, I didn't leave at 1 a.m. And he's like, but he says that you did leave at 1 a.m. and you're gone for about an hour. And she's like, maybe I did leave. Maybe I did see him. And she's tired. She hasn't eaten. And she's just exhausted. And all these things are happening. This is just a flyby of what's happened, but it's really intense. And this happens all the time. There's loads of documented cases of these things happening, like these memories being implanted into people being coerced into kind of admitting things that they didn't mean to say.
And is this kind
they
of...
hit her as well.
They hit her?
Yeah. She gets like a couple of years added onto her sentence because she said that the investigator hit her. But they did. They slapped her across the head. Yeah.
So are they under, imagine there's been other cases, I think this has happened with maybe Madeleine McCann, no, I don't know, where they're like forced to basically try and get an answer and a result quickly.
Yeah, this is it. These systems aren't really that sophisticated. So afterwards, they allow her to rest for an hour or two. They push 2 chairs together, and when she wakes up, immediately she realizes what's happened, which is that she's been coerced into implicating her boss, Patrick, in Meredith's murder. So she's angry, she's confused, and she's waiting in this waiting room, and Philomena and a bunch of the others are there now. And one of them says, I hope Meredith didn't suffer. And Amanda's like, of course she suffered. Someone slit her throat.
Okay.
And so when the news breaks that she has confessed, this apparent lack of sensitivity and brashness, it's just more incriminating against her.
I see. Yeah.
So I don't know where they're getting all this information from, but it's mental. The press are loving it. So while all this is going on, her phone is constantly ringing. Her mother has just arrived in Perugia and she cannot find Amanda. And of course, Amanda can see her phone like a foot away, but she just isn't allowed to answer it. And the police are just trying to get as much information as possible before like her mother intervenes and finally says the sensible thing and says, stop talking. You need a lawyer.
That's what I was about to say. She hasn't got a lawyer at this point, has she?
No lawyer, but they get everything they need and immediately they go public with it all, which is just so stupid.
Wow.
So Amanda gets arrested and obviously they take her to prison. But before she gets taken away, she has to talk to Menini, the prosecutor. That's his actual job. And he says, all right, you need to talk me through what happened so we can get the official confession. And Amanda's like, no, I can't do that. I've said things that aren't right. And he insists you wouldn't have confessed if you hadn't done it. So you did it. And he keeps just repeating the same question. Why did you name Patrick? Why would you say it if he didn't do it or if you didn't see him?
So is she saying that Patrick is the one that killed Meredith and she was implicated?
She's not saying that anymore. She said that in the interrogation room because she was told that Raffaele said that she left the house.
But why Patrick? Do they think it's him? Why are they using him?
I don't know.
Okay.
Don't know. Because we're going to find out in the next episode.
What?
Because I think that's where we're going to leave it today.
What? This is it?
This is a 2-parter.
We're not wrapping it. What?
No. So next week, we are going to be covering Amanda Knox's trial. I'm going to tell you the details of the actual crime and a bit about her time in prison. Because at this point, this chick, she's headed for jail. Oh. So, what are your thoughts?
I didn't agree to 2-parters. But yeah, I'm learning way more than I realized the kind of nuances of this case. I think I only just had the top level, kind of what the media portrayed.
That's it.
I didn't know this level that underneath it. So yeah, I'm interested to see the next one now.
Great. So, should we wrap up?
Yeah, let's do it.
That brings us to an end of another episode of the Compendium, an assembly of fascinating and intriguing things. If you've enjoyed today's episode, then you can show us some love by leaving us that cheeky 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Every little review helps. Remember, we're also on Instagram at the Compendium Podcast. Remember, we now have a new home on the web, which is, what is it, Adam?
thecompendiumpodcast.com.
So all you Compendium lovers, check it out. So I guess until next week, we leave you on a cliffhanger.
I can't believe I have to wait a whole week.
Oh, well, we'll be recording this straight after this anyway.
Oh, okay.
So see ya.
See ya.